Hey, hey, how we doing, Ed? I'll bring you up on stage here as we're going to get started for the event. Let me get some tunes rolling in the background, too. Ooh, that might be too loud. Let's bring that down a little bit.
Yeah. Hey, I'm open two tabs. One with the game at the moment, and one with the new website. Show what is active, the front end, the regular site, what is not, and what is back on the new website. So just to compare where we stand at the moment. We're gonna give it 5 minutes, maybe, for people to join.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And Ed, you'll probably do a good amount more talking this week than usually I do. My voice is a little bit hoarse, as you could probably tell. Suffering some pretty good allergies over here, so yeah, talking
Doesn't
for me
sound
today has been a
that
bit of a struggle.
It doesn't sound that bad, honestly, on the microphone, but yeah.
Yeah, and it might not be, but also just I don't know. I've got this like shallow cough, so if I expend too much of my wind, I'll end up just like in a coughing fit. So I have to kind of go in short spurts, which is also annoying. So I feel like I'm almost talking like staccato, but I'll do my best.
Still. Do you have music behind you?
Yeah, I got some tunes going on here just to kind of give us some background as we let some people roll in, or it might just be the usual suspects, maybe me, you, and Kaka for today, generating some conversation and talking there too. But that's all good. I know Milos was originally planning on attending, but it's pretty late in the evening for him, so he was like,
It's,
he's like, I got to
it's
shut it
actually
down. He's like, I'll catch the recording another day.
it's actually not really late, but is really often going to bed very early, and I believe he's also waking up very early compared to
Yes,
us.
yes.
Yeah, but in Europe is on the same time zone as I am, and it's 10 p.m., so it's not that bad. And Canada, I think you are. Maybe Portugal has 1 hour less. Probably.
Here, let's pull him up on stage too, so we can get some conversation flowing between the three of us.
Yeah, it's 1 hour less. Hi, everybody.
Hey, brother.
Okay. So, okay, let me just handle my windows so I can share just one window and not everything I have. Not that I have things to hide. Funny thing, I always open the same tabs every morning, and one of them is still the master list and game master.
From the Rifters trackings.
Yeah, master tracking. Okay, time to close this one.
Yeah,
So,
muscle memory opening that one up, and you're like, don't need this one today. Yeah. Well, cool. All right, maybe I'll just kind of kick some things off, and we'll kind of move into it from there. So, this is our third installment of I'm sure many of the Loot Heroes Revival. Basically, what we're looking to do is, for anyone who's new to this or just chiming in, or listening later, of course, really the purpose is to have some ongoing conversation as we're moving from where we minted the project about a year ago. Things have stalled tremendously with the former team, and then we're now in a transition where myself, Ed, House Laristar, and a few others are going to be taking over the project and really putting hands on things to move it in a better direction. So the point of these conversations, that we want to hold them on a weekly basis, is to have and foster more community engagement. We know it's going to take a little while to re-engage people, which is fine because, frankly, it's going to take us a little bit of time to move forward from here, get the game back on track to where it needs to be. There are some existing parts that work, but there are some other parts that we need to move forward. So we'll talk about who we have on the team, what development's being done, where things are at from a transition standpoint, and then also we want to get into, okay, what is the game plan? How are we going to generate revenue? And then we had some conversation previously, but I'm sure we'll probably get into it again some more today around loot, the loot economy, how that works with staking and expeditions, and then any other topics that people want to bring to the table too. So, for anyone that had put some questions, I think Commander Whitlow, for example, had mentioned some things in the AMA questions forum. Inside the Discord, we'll try and pull from there. But then also people that join in or just are talking to us throughout the week, we want to cover those topics there too. So, okay, without further ado, I will start sharing your screen for, let's see your live stream here. Perfect. So you got the game pulled up. And one of the things that you guys may notice is that at the very top, this is actually not from the Loot Heroes website. So this is something that we're building right now, kind of in parallel, I guess you could say, to what's already existing on the Loot Heroes website. But there's currently development that's ongoing where we're building and iterating off of the existing assets. So that's what you're seeing if you're watching the video later or live streaming right now, as you see Ed, who's currently on the Loot Heroes website.
And here is the main one, the current one, and this is the one we are now working on. So, whoa, no, I don't want the music to be back on. So what we want to do here is not change everything. Of course, we are just relinking everything that needs to be linked in the game. And if you have a look here, for example, you know that you can play the dungeons on the main website. But here, we are facing a first issue where we are missing a few things. If you have a look here, for example, you can see that rarity is supposed to be a star, and here for now it's just a square. For some reasons, some characters are not don't have the same stats they used to have. Like for example, we all know that the gladiator used to have 1 at the bottom. The samurai used to have 4 on the bottom as well. So here a few things. The Amazon at 3 also. It's good to see that we can remember a few of the stats. So a few things here are still not working properly. It may be because we have not linked it yet. It can be because we are actually missing a few pieces from the former team. As I mentioned on the general chat, the former team is really doing its best to share everything they can and everything they need to share with us. Just can take a bit of time because of all issues and activities. You can be busy and miss the time to send everything. So it's a slow process a bit at the moment. But every time we are receiving anything, our devs are really active to dig into it, to take the habits with everything which has been written, because for everything, it's never easy to get back someone else's work, even if it's the code, the type of code that you understand and you know. So a few small things like this, but that make the process still a bit slower for now. But we are definitely doing something at the moment. And one more thing that we are facing, and you are going to see, let me just create a random deck like this. I don't remember what were the limits. Oh, there we go. Gladiator without the 1 at the bottom is really strong, especially with the resistance. And here, when you are on the chessboard, for some reason, also the pictures are not showing properly. So that's part of the few things that we need to check. However, if you click on the heroes, I crashed it. Your heroes are displayed properly. I'm not sure it was the case. If you are, I'm back on the main website. There you go. This is a website you have at the moment, and you can't see it. a new website. We've fixed the connectivity to see your heroes, not to use them yet. The items are a bit different, so it's still not working. But airdrops and expeditions, expedition tab is working, though you can still can't stack. You can't unstack your heroes yet, but it's an ongoing thing.
Yeah, and those functionalities I think we're gonna have here pretty soon, so that'll be nice. Like I know Noob Survivor put in one of the AMA questions about when we'd be able to do that to stake and unstake our heroes and take them on and off the expedition, especially if he wants to move them, like from the ledger, for example. So we expect that that'll probably happen in short order. But you know, like Ed mentioned, not currently yet on the live site. We're fixing some of those things on the back end on some of our other test sites. And then we're going to roll that out to the live site on lootheroes.io. So quick update on the transition. One sec. Quick update on the transition. We've got most of the assets that have moved over from the former team to us. So we do have hands on pretty much everything, and we're working with them, mainly R, who is one of the main developers, in conjunction to make sure that some of those little pieces that aren't quite pulling through properly yet, like you mentioned some of the visual aspects that aren't showing on the cards, or the stars that are kind of just showing up as like a yellow box. Some of those little missing pieces are pretty easy to fix, but it can take a little bit of directivity, you know, from R to tell us, okay, well, here you got to go to source this direction or source that. But from a connectivity standpoint, as you can see, we're able to pull through and do some things already, which is very good to see. We also may open up some capacity and make some announcements around, hey, if staking is re-enabled or unstaking is re-enabled, if we want to do some things where we might even do some rewriting of some of the back end of things. Well, we'll certainly want to provide like a window of opportunity to say, okay, we're gonna, you know, allow you to be able to move your, you know, characters around, do what you need to do, and then, you know, we may go down for construction over a period of time. So we want to be sensitive to those things as best we can, you know, to give you guys an opportunity to do so on that front. So, yep.
Yeah, and one more thing that we don't want to release, you know, one tab is fixed, so we release this and then one more and one more, because we are basically taking things over from the beginning. You guys have been waiting for 1 year, so we consider that everybody can wait for maybe a few more weeks to have everything, you know, all the website at least ready at once, just to release everything at the same time. I don't really see a point where we would release the fact that you can see your heroes if you can't do anything with it. You know? So, and maybe it's the occasion also to talk a bit about the team. So the team, because you know Josh and you know me mostly, that we don't have the technical skills for all of this. So we had to find developers, and we found 2, maybe 3 even, really great guys to work with us for now. It's not an easy task because basically we don't have a lot of funds to allocate here, and we need to save a bit of the treasury. So, well, not me, but Josh has friends, and he asked for some services, some help from friends who are happy to help for now without any compensation most of the time. So it's good because without this help, basically it's really hard to take over a project without any money. We don't really have and want to put our personal funds in this for now because, well, it depends on everybody's life, but I personally can't really afford this. What I have to give is my time more than my money for now. And so we have asked around for various helps, and we've been pretty lucky because the team of developers that we've gathered for now is first already more than what the previous team had, where it was basically only R, and they are really determined to help, happy to help, and are are for now giving pretty much a lot of time compared to the fact that they also have real life responsibilities and job. So I want to thank them for this, and I hope we're going to do a great job together.
Yeah, we feel really strongly about the team that we put together, and the developers that we have some really robust experience behind them already. So some of them working on other chains on the EVM front, but really understanding game development and coding and having kind of the chops to be able to help us out on that front. Others that have a lot more experience building on the Solana blockchain. Actually, this is a fellow who we've been incorporating a little bit more recently, but has developed some of the earliest and first applications on the Solana blockchain, so has a really, really robust experience there. Even had experience building out his own game, so definitely comes in handy from that standpoint. And with respect to kind of the time commitment versus the money commitment, this is something I've talked about behind the scenes, but I have told people I'm going to be open and transparent from the get-go for sure. Is I'm happy to allocate and pour some of my own funds into the project like this as it continues to grow and becomes a little bit more self-sustaining, revenue generating. We get more of the community re-engaged. What I don't want to do is just open a checkbook and say, hey, I'm going to write a blank check and we'll see if we can get something moving from zero, right? Because we're going the opposite of momentum, which is we have none, and we're trying to rebuild momentum. So I want to be able to get to a point where we can start to see some momentum, and then those funds can be deployed in a more useful manner. Right now, what we're going to be doing is mainly deploying our funds to help, pay for ongoing development, and make sure we get some compensation in the hands of the people that are doing the majority of the work. And then as we build that model out and we have some more revenue, and then we need some more funds to do some more things, well, then I think that's where we can start to allocate some more of those, myself and maybe some others included. But I'm just more so for right now talking about myself, to be able to do some things maybe on the marketing side or whatever it might be, to kind of move the project forward from there. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about the funding aspect of it. But in the interim, like Ed mentioned, we're very fortunate to have built out a nice, strong team. And I'm excited, and I know they are too, to kind of build from here and see where we can move things. Yeah.
One more thing, one of the main topics we mentioned last time, PvP, and how we're going to be able to work on the time zones. So it's still one of the main topics to clear. It's not cleared yet, and it won't be cleared without many other discussion with the community, because that's you guys and that's for you. So we really want to have you part of this. But what the second main topic, and we've already mentioned it a bit, is the circulating supply of loot. So we got, once again, it's not something we are going to decide just by ourselves. You would be involved in the discussion and in the decision. We've got already many point of views already just inside the team, where I personally believe that we should just reset everything. It's not really nice for anybody. However, if the timeline had been handled properly, no one would have raised these crazy amounts, which are everybody would agree with that. It's really bad for the project to have such high circulating supply. However, we don't want to screw to the community to feel screwed by the decision regarding loot. And also, we want, of course, the first holders to have an advantage, a perk for being early, for trusting us in the first place, and everything. So there are various alternatives, no reset, and maybe have more features involving loot, like we mentioned last time, maybe for PvP in some states. Or also it could be actually not a complete reset, but a reset to something which was a decent timeline. from on the game perspectives. I know when we first maintained, it's good to remember that the speech was compared to other projects. We have playing playable game ready already, and new features should be released in the next 2 weeks. So maybe it's fair to keep 2 weeks of loot for everybody and reset the rest of it. I don't know. It's really something. We would like to have more feedbacks from the community here, and especially from important members like Dorkov, Gwen, Kata, of course, Milos, and anybody else is welcome. I see some tracings, popping up sometimes, just 1 minute in general chat, and we really hope that people will come back more and more and drop their point of view on this very many important topics.
Yeah, I would definitely expand upon that and say that many people have, I'm sure, certain put the Discord kind of on ice. Some people have left the Discord altogether. I will say, just looking at the administrative standpoint, in the past couple weeks, I've noticed a few people who are still verified holders that had left the Discord have come back. So, I mean, it's not like hundreds of people, right? But at the same point, we're starting to see a couple people pop their heads back in, see what's going on, have relative and loose interest to see, okay, well, how is the development going to proceed? Basically, we've all written off our Loot Heroes assets to be worth nothing. And they, very well could be, we'll see. But at least there's re-engagement from here. And if we can get to a place where we can actually draw more eyes and more interest into Loot Heroes, then this is a really great opportunity for you guys to be ahead of that conversation, provide your input and your feedback on how you'd like to see things moving forward as we're building out this new pathway of generating revenue going forward. So that's where, like Ed and I have been talking to say, okay, well, we're hoping to get more and more folks that are starting to participate in these AMAs, either live or in the AMA questions forum in the Discord, or just in general chat as well, just kind of, talking amongst each other and getting more feedback there. So I'll make some posts up after this to maybe talk around, especially the loot economy, because I think that's probably where a lot of initial conversation is going to want to be generated. And we can think of that in context to the entry price for what it might cost to play in like a PvP tournament, or we could think of it as maybe the price that it might cost to do PvE as well, right? And so whether it comes to more of like a seasonality, or maybe you need to have some level of loot to enter a season, and then at the end of that PvE season, however long that is, that season could be a week, right? It could be a month, whatever we determine. But if that PvE season is, let's say, a week long or 2 weeks long, well, maybe it should cost some relative amount of loot, right? So if we go back to thinking about 2 weeks worth of loot, if we know that basically everyone here has been able to accumulate a massive amount of loot, assuming they've staked their heroes, well, just to put out an arbitrary figure, but let's just say it cost 50,000 loot to be able to participate in that PvE event. Well, why would you pay that? Well, what if, as a team, what if we put out a $500 prize to the winner of that first 2-week PvE event? Okay, now we've created some incentive for people to use their loot up front. We're trying to gear and cater more towards our existing holders because you guys will be the ones that's going to have loot. Loot isn't even a purchasable asset right now. We may want to consider that down the road, though, too, where maybe it's an on-chain type of asset. And that way people can actually trade it through like FFF or something of that nature too. That may be something for us to consider. So those variables as to how people use loot, PvE, PvP, those are the ways that we're thinking around it. And then we can play with how much loot does something cost. It may even be variable. This is something I've thought about in my mind, and it's probably worth having some discussion around. But what if the entry cost of a PvE tournament was actually not a fixed amount, so not 50,000 loot or however much loot you want to apply to it, but what if it was an overall percentage of the total loot economy, and you just took a snapshot, like, you know, a couple days or a week before, or even the day, you know, beforehand, before starting an event, and you just said, okay, well, it's going to cost, I don't know, 1% or 2% of the total loot economy is your entry to get into that PvE tournament, right? And it could be even less than that depending on the total amount that's out there and what we think is appropriate to get more people involved. But we want it to have a real cost factor, and we want it to provide value. So that way there's one of two ways that you can really acquire loot. One, you go and you buy a Genesis hero that you could then stake on Expedition and generate loot. Or two, if there was the ability to trade it on chain, well, you can go to a place like FFF and people could sell their loot for Solana, right? And that might be the other way to acquire it. Or third, and this is something we've talked a little bit about on and off, is, well, let's get outside Web 3. And what if we want to have Web 2 people get incorporated in these events as well, right? Because if it's a cash prize to say, hey, you can win $500 at the end of this PvE event, do you even need an NFT to play? Well, no. What if you just paid some entry fee? You know, what if it was $5 or something like that to get access to that purse, and then you got the necessary loot amount, you kind of got that paid off based off of that US dollar contribution. So you could literally go to a plugin on the website, and then you could like enter event. They would use their credit card or debit card or whatever they want to do to pay for it. And that might be another way that we could actually incorporate quote unquote buying loot, right? It wouldn't be a direct acquisition of loot, but another way to kind of give it some actual value, because then it's tangentially tied to some dollar amount based off the amount that you could win in a tournament, what it would cost to enter a tournament, and we're creating more value for our Genesis heroes and those that hold them. That's exactly what we want to do, right? Because we've got that benefit in a way that we didn't have such a successful mint, that we're not flooded with these Genesis Zero heroes. So we can actually be a little bit more cautious and careful with what we're going to do to empower the people that hold those things to make them valuable assets. So yeah, down that path, I'd love to hear more community feedback around different ways to utilize loot, cost structures for loot. But those are a couple of the ideas that we've been working with. And myself as a finance guy, I'm very comfortable with building and structuring the economics of that and how that model would work. And we we do need to restructure how the staking is going to work. And I kind of teased it in my note here about, this AMA is, are we going to burn all of the loot down? What's that going to be? And does staking need a reworking altogether, right? So maybe you don't even earn loot from staking. Maybe there's other ways to earn loot that is more directly related to actually playing the game. And maybe that's the only way that you can earn. So those facets are things that we need to dive into. And we could establish some type of tier structure that said, well, if you own a Genesis hero and you participate in, let's just say, a PvE tournament, well, you're going to get back some amount of the loot that gets entered into that tournament, right? Wouldn't that be a cool functionality to say, hey, if you participate in the tournament and you own a Genesis hero, you're going to get some percentage of the loot that's collected that goes into the tournament, right? We've talked about guild structures in the past as well. Those are all things that we're open to figuring out how to balance that loot economy. And it's probably not just one or two of the things that we're talking about, but it's probably multiples of those things too. So, okay, I know I've been chatting a little bit about the loot side. I want to give Ed and Kaka a chance to chime in on that too, and maybe talk on that front.
I can say if you want to add anything, but yeah, in all of the projects who have a token, where whether it's tradable or not, the supply is always the main concern, and it will be the same for us. The more opportunities and features we have to burn loot and to use the loot, the better it is for us, for the project, and of course for the community. So it's
Well,
definitely
for me,
something.
for me, I believe that the 2 weeks of loot will be like pretty much. At least we have to give to the people that have been holding something, and we don't flow the market with too much token. So I agree on that. The tournaments seem like a really good idea for us to get at least people on the Discord, people to know the game. The Web2 community should also, well, or anything that has a cash prize that is, that can easily be won. I think people want to get on that, even if they don't are on the NFT world, and maybe we can bring them later to the NFT world. Wow, I like this game. Maybe if these guys do this more often, or if I can play with my own deck, would be interesting. So I think at least my point from we talking until now.
Yeah, we are not definitely not close uh, to opening the doors of Lutera to Web to people. And if actually Loot Heroes can be a way for people to jump into Web3 with a game which is fun, which is easy to play and to understand. Yeah, maybe it's actually the best way to have people instead of having new people in Web3 looking for the new shitcoin they can try to make a good multiplicator with and finally lose money.
Yeah, like Pepe coin or something, right? Yeah, we definitely had
Oh, I saw that.
yeah, we had some serious consideration about launching our own shitcoin named Loot, and then rugging everyone. No, just kidding. Of course not. I mean, those things are all going to zero at some point. So good luck to everyone who's participating in them. But yeah, that's not our model, not our forte. One of the things you bring up, Ed, too, about incorporating the Web 2 users and maybe bringing them into Web 3 is there is real potential that if we could build this very simple bridging mechanism, and gaming is certainly a way to do it. And you and I have chatted a little bit behind the scenes about what if we even had like a free to play mini version of Lutera, of the Quadra, and that what if we could have it in like the Apple Store, right? And people could actually download the game for free, play a little variant of it, and then have to get this like, will you buy up or you come here, right? And lead them and funnel them back towards us. And if we did have something where there were free to play options or options where you don't need to own any crypto at all to be able to participate and have this eSports prize type structure, if we do it right, I'm telling you, I think we could really adopt some people that way, and we could definitely bring them in. And they may never own an NFT, and that's fine too. And there's a lot more of the world that's heading that direction with the digital collectibles, the Redditors with their avatars. We laugh at them. We know it's an NFT, but they don't, and they hate NFTs, right? And there's millions of those people. So we do want to try and appeal to those folks too. That is a very real avenue for very good revenue generation in the long run. And while we're not stating as a promise that we're like, hey, we're going to pay X% of revenue back to all the holders, but you better believe that we absolutely want to reward you guys. And if we can find a model that's revenue generating and we can push some of that back to the Genesis holders, we 100% want to do that. And also think about this. As a team, Ed and I, we own some of those Genesis heroes ourselves too. So, if we're going to do that, then we're going to create some own revenue back to ourselves based off the people, the heroes that we own, regardless. So that is something that we've talked about, we've thought about, and we want to create more of those models that is going to reward people and will eventually move, those Web 2 holders or those Web 2 adopters and the non-holders within Web 3. We want to move them to try and acquire assets also, right? And so this is where then, I say we need to rethink the whole recruiting model, the staking model, because recruiting, remember, we were supposed to be able to recruit a bunch of new heroes as well too. Well, I think we need to tie that back to what does the onboarding look like? How many new users do we have? How many non-NFT holders do we have? What's the appetite for people to buy NFTs? And that's where maybe that recruiting starts to build. And now we open the floodgates a little bit to recruit some of those soldiers, right? And if you think back to the architecture, it was lords sort of at the top of the stack, knights underneath them, and then underneath both of those was those soldier NFTs too. So we're still very far away from being there, but I don't know if you would have any counterbalancing points to that, Ed, or differences of opinion, but those are the things that I'm thinking about with relation to the short-term and long-term visions of how we balance our total economy.
Well, two things here. First, the side you mentioned about potentially the Apple Store and the free-to-play app is something we've discussed, of course, together. So I'm aware, and that I find interesting for one main reason is that, of course, we are looking for different leads to generate revenue because today in Web3, not only in Web3, in the whole world, you have so many projects, companies, which are actually not sustainable. And that's definitely not what we want. And the good side of this Apple Store app would be, first, it's a free-to-play but very short version, so people would download it because it's free and will play it and probably enjoy it. Then, if they join and pay something really, really low, when the entry price is low, people think they can actually afford it. So, but if the entry price was $50, even if it's to win 5,000, you would have less people doing it. If it's $5 and you can win 500, it's exactly the same rate between what you invest, between the cost and what you can win, but it makes it available for much more people who can afford 5 when they can't afford 50. And it's also probably, we need to confirm this with the devs because from past experience, I don't like to say that it's easy to do and it's not my skills that are required for this, but it's probably a very low effort on the dev side to turn it into an app that you can download on the App Store, because one of the things that you need for such a casual game is the mobile interface. And I know, Josh, you've talked about it with the devs a bit earlier, like even 1 hour ago. And this is something that we want to go with, making the game really compatible with mobile devices. So
This is actually something that I'll give a shout out to our old friend, Dirty Cajun Rice. He was building out some of their applications on the Harmony blockchain, and I was helping him with some various facets of that. And he showed me a lot of the behind the scenes of how he was doing that and developing that particular application. And it actually was pretty simple, the way he was showing it to me, that when you build these things, as long as you're building out the functionality at the beginning, then it's really not that hard to roll them out later on. The problem is if you just build it out for the web space, just a web browser, and then you're trying to then take everything that you've done and then migrate it over to mobile, it can be a nightmare of an undertaking. So that's why one of the things I said up front was we may even do some rewriting, because it may enable us to really do some things down the road that we want to do if we do a little bit of rewinding and then do some rebuilding at the front end. So I know that I'm not speaking out against some of the things that we've talked about from the development team. That's a very ongoing and real thing, and we probably will do some level of rewriting. And one of the things that I'm cognizant of, like you said, is making sure that we do these things concurrently, where we're not just thinking about the web browser, although that can still be maybe our main portal, but we need to also build it with mobile in mind if one of our goals is to roll this out in an app store or the Google Play Store, right? Or even just have the functionality for people to access it on their phone. I mean, how beautiful would that be when people are getting more of that Saga mobile, right? And then you can play the game on your Solana mobile phone. Like, that would be awesome. So yeah, I'm excited about that stuff. But like Ed said, temper expectations, we're moving slow. This is not going to roll out tomorrow. Those are just the things that we're thinking about, and hopefully could show you that, you know, for us as a team, we're not idiots either, and we're thinking on a short scale and a medium and a long scale all at the same time, because you do need to be thinking and parsing those things out if you're going to build successfully in any shape or form, rather than many projects just raise funds and kind of figure it out as they go, and they don't really have a plan, right? Why do businesses fail? And most startup businesses in the Web 2 space fail. Like 90% of them fail. Well, a lot of them fail because they're poorly run businesses, right? They may have a good model around what they're doing, but as a business owner, they're doing a terrible job running their business. That is the reason why most of them fail. And there's a lot of good data on this too, that sports teams are run way more successfully than most businesses, right? And what's the big key difference between a sports team and a startup business? Well, think about like a football team, and I mean American football, sorry, Ed, but think about a football team. What do they have?
Not football.
Yeah. They have a playbook though, right? So everybody understands what their roles and responsibilities are, and they understand who's working on what. If I'm the guard or the tackle, I understand what blocks I need to hit in order to spring the running back towards the end zone. Like all those things need to work in tandem. So I've got a lot of business experience working at a number of different organizations. I'm in management at my current role, at my own job in Web 2. So these are things that I'm quite comfortable with in building a business and working sort of entrepreneurial in a number of different things that I've done. So I'm hoping to layer a lot of that in to what we're doing on the Web3 development side of things. So a little bit of a tangent there, but I don't know, you got my wheels spin a little bit on that front, Ed, and I just want to tell that to everyone as I'm thinking kind of big picture stuff too.
And regarding the second topic you mentioned before with recruiting, I don't know if I already agree with you, but exactly as the supply of loot is going to be something to handle and to be really careful about, the supply of heroes is going to be exactly the same. So of course we don't want anyone to be able to recruit 100 heroes tomorrow, because it's not good for anybody if there are too many heroes circulating and it's too easy to recruit. However, we also want people who could actually only afford 2 heroes and who purchase especially 2 heroes and not one, who made the effort to purchase a second one, to be able to recruit to get a full stack, which we have because we are lucky and we could afford it. But I really think that the number of people initially who bought something like between 2 and 4 heroes, not a full stack, are the majority, or were the majority at least. So it's also something to consider. They shouldn't be penalized because most of the people are not looking for recruits to sell, recruits to play with a full stack of their choice. So it's one more topic we're gonna have discussions hopefully with feedbacks from the community. We didn't mention it a lot before. We've talked about PvP and loot a lot, not much about recruiting, but it's also definitely needs to be on the list.
Yes, for sure. And what I'll probably do is maybe even do some simple things like some simple polling in some of the announcements, right? And put out like a option 1, 2, and 3 kind of thing to get some conversation flow in there. That might be helpful on topics like that. But you're absolutely right. Like, I want counterbalancing opinions. I don't want this to be, all of Josh's ideas, even though I'm partial to my own ideas because I like them. But I don't want it to be just all my ideas. Like I want good ideas, right? And something that my grandfather taught me very early as a boy was he would talk to me often about, grandparents are always this way. They tell you the same story 100 different times, but that's how it sinks in. And he would often, talk to me about the difference between being smart and being wise. And it stuck with me through my entire life. And a smart person is someone who's well educated, right? They've been studied, maybe they've traveled the world, and they're very confident in their abilities, and they don't rely on other people because they know that they're smart, and then they can discern things and they can interpret them and make their own determinations. Well, there's some shortcomings to that, right? Because a wise person may be educated in the same right, may be well traveled, and they may have confidence in their own abilities as well. But a wise person understands that they can't know everything, and that it's foolish to think that you can see all of your blind spots. That's why you call them blind spots. And so a wise person surrounds themselves with other smart people, and they're also willing to hear ideas from other people as well. So I've always tried to think of myself as a wise person, and someone who, even though I think I'm smart, but I don't want to be that smart person that doesn't heed ideas or advice from others. And I always try and surround myself with other people. I mean, early on, even in my business career, I created somewhat of an advisory council, thinking very much along those lines of wanting to surround myself with other people who have good ideas that can help me in my business. So that's something that we want to incorporate and absolutely want to, have more and more community feedback. So again, that's one of the reasons why we're doing this type of stuff. So yeah, I know we've been talking for about 45 minutes. I'll be sensitive that I probably have to wrap up in the next 5 or 10, but go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, just to mention that what you're saying is exactly the reason I usually like to work with you, and that what I tell to people when I talk about you, that we agree on many things and enough things to make it work, and we did agree on enough things to make things progress. And that's very important. And as we intend to get the community involved, it's one more, at least one more point of view that we could have, and just to make it better for everybody. And we are not, I don't think that anyone can say that we are stubborn, and we are really inclined to listen to anyone's idea, and to apply it if it's actually a really good idea.
Yeah.
I'm just going to run like 2 questions that there is on the AMA channel. One of them I'm not sure if was already answering. That it was if we were considering moving away from Solana. To another thing that was Bitloaf that asked. I think I'm not sure if you addressed that the last week, but FMA or Oz if you want to.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. Oh, go ahead, Ed. Go ahead.
We didn't address it, and we actually didn't talk about it together, Josh. But I don't believe we want to. I don't believe there is a need to move from Solana. Instead of, if we are forced to, maybe, if Solana actually collapses. But I think Solana has shown a very impressive resilience this past month. Everybody outside Solana said that Solana was going to die, and actually Solana is still here. And when I see any other blockchain, I'm not going to talk about Sui, which is really, really new, but all the others have the issues that Solana doesn't have about something really basic, but the fees. Ethereum has done big progresses, but progresses means it doesn't cost you $100 to make a transaction. Now it's only 15, which is crazy. So on this side, this is one of the main reasons I like Solana. And I am pretty much in favor of staying here. And we can discuss to move from it, but the question would be to go where? And where do we have do we not face the issues that are responsible of the collapse, or the lack of love on the other blockchains?
Yep. I think the sentiment is a good one from Commander Whitlow, thinking ahead. Like, hey, if the Solana blockchain dies, we need to make sure we've got a home somewhere else. However, I don't think that that's going to be an issue. And it could just be me being short-sighted and having my own blind spots, right? So it's probably something that we do need to talk about and figure out what that looks like. But if you think about some of the things we've already mentioned, is if we're trying to find a way to adopt more people from a Web 2 perspective, it actually makes us a lot more resilient to like the blockchain. We're going to have functionality that's built into the Solana blockchain. So, from that standpoint, it would require some rewiring and some redoing. But if there's other aspects of it that are really more Web 2 in nature, then we could exist on any blockchain. It doesn't even really have to be an NFT game. I guess if we really wanted to go down that route, although that's not the direction we're trying to head. We're trying to bring more people into the Web3 ecosystem, and then also just trying to incorporate people that want to play games as well. But, Ed has a really good point that, more and more of these layer 2 chains have popped up, like Sui and others and Arbitrum and all other stuff, because there's an inherent problem with Ethereum. Now, Ethereum is where a ton of money lies, but like I saw this post on Twitter the other day, and I thought it was pretty accurate. Someone said, 80% of the Solana users came from Ethereum, or at least have used Ethereum somewhat before. Whereas the Ethereum chain, like almost none of them have ever even used Solana. So it's not like we're here on Solana because this was like our first exposure, although for some people it probably was. But we recognized, and why is it that Solana has like more developers per capita than any other chain? Well, because they recognize that this could be obviously the wave of the future and the way to go on a much more scalability perspective, low cost fees. Like those are also the kind of things that we can integrate and market, and may even provide for some sources for joint ventures with like the Solana Foundation, for example. They want to have games highlight this for them. So that may even be something that works in our benefit as long as Solana is still around. And I would argue that, we've seen maybe the worst of the worst, right? With the FTX crash, and people thought that would be the end of Solana. Well, we don't know because we're not at the end of the bear market yet, and so anything is possible. But at least in the short run, Solana has held up extremely well and rebounded quite fantastically from where it was. We're very, very, very far off our highs, but so is the rest of the market. And that just means that if we can sustain and get through this, I think that provides more proof point that it's not going anywhere than anything else, right? You need these stress tests on any business model. You don't really know if it's going to survive until you really stress it. And the network has been stressed time and time again, right? We've had the network down, network congestion. Many of us have been involved in mints that went south because the Solana blockchain just stopped functioning. All of those things are really things of the past. And then we had this massive liquidity event around FTX, and now we're seeing recovery from there too. So, I've been even telling people from my own standpoint, where I've been putting my money where my mouth is, I've been dollar cost averaging and buying more and more Solana myself, because I do think that from an upside play, there's much more upside to be had in Solana than some other blockchains. So while I would say I'm open to it, I would reiterate what Ed said is I don't think there's a necessity for moving away from Solana right now, but I do love the question.
Yeah, and sure it's good to anticipate, but also even if we think the anticipation, at the moment to build on a blockchain, you need one dev at least from this blockchain with knowledge on this blockchain. And with all the architecture already done on Solana and our dev that we found, which is really good, that on the Solana blockchain, it's not we can't afford at the moment to build backup and safety on another chain. And I think I know where what Whitloaf was considering as also chain to host us. It's probably Avalanche, because I know he's working on a project where they launched on this one, and Avalanche is actually a really good one as well for the fees. It's
Yes.
probably the best with Solana. I think Arbitrum is already a bit high, whereas it's really, really new.
Yeah, and Avalanche is definitely one of those chains where there's a good amount of exposure there. I know a number of projects there. I've had experience on the Avalanche chain. Polygon is certainly one that, people may be a bit sour on or whatnot, depending on how they feel about the gods moving over there and Utes and all that. But there's a lot more gamers on the Polygon chain too. So, while I don't think we're going to move blockchains in the short run, I'm absolutely going to appeal to them and I'm going to try and market to them. You're going to see me on more Twitter spaces. So I've been talking behind the scenes with some other founders of other projects that are more integrated in other spaces, and we've already started to come up with somewhat of a game plan to try and do some cross-pollination between ourselves and Polygon. So that'll be stuff that you'll see there too. But no, we're not likely to follow in the steps of Frank there, although I don't mean to speak to our project in the same gravitas as theirs. But the idea is not to take our existing assets and migrate them somewhere else, unless we absolutely had to, or if we thought that it was beneficial. Then sure, I would consider it. Yeah.
And,
I think that we only, at least, if you don't want to stretch this for much longer, we still have the question from Nob Survivor that he wants to move his euros from off his ledger, and he's asking when he will be able to do that.
Soon.
yeah,
Blizzard trademark.
Yeah.
I mean, we've known from some past experience that timelines are sometimes unexpected and anything can happen on the way. However, I've shown you on my screen that more tabs are getting available on the website soon, and definitely we won't release anything if the stacking is not ready. But at the same time, if the stacking is ready, and as we mentioned at loot, we are not really excited yet on the loot side. Even if the stacking is available back, I'm not sure it will be generating loot immediately, because again, if we are, let's say, just even 3 weeks away from releasing the game back to its former state, what's the point of releasing stacking and starting generating, whereas anything can be delayed and you enter the vicious circle with a big amount of loot again. However, if it's ready, we could just have the stacking ready without loot generation, maybe, just for people to be able to unstack if they want. If it's to sell or if it's to move from a ledger to a ledger or anything, this is something we can consider. But every piece of the game is linked to the other. So if you have stacking and you generate loot without anything to play or to spend your loot, it doesn't make sense.
Yep, exactly. So, as soon as possible would be our answer on that one. We're keen to it. We want people to get access to their heroes and be able to move them around and do what they want with them, including list them, right? We want people to be able to do that too. And, I can talk about that quickly for a minute, but I'm fine with people selling their heroes, right? Like, this isn't something where we're trying to lock people into anything either. I'm sure some people would like to exit and they haven't been able to, right? So for others, that gives an opportunity to buy in. And our friend Newtedall from the Rifters economy, actually, this was something that he was keen on talking about, which is you need velocity, right? You need movement of people coming in and out of the ecosystem. And when you've got a fixed supply, like we do of heroes, it means some people need to move out for other people to move in. So it's very healthy to be able to open those things back up and create that, supply again, because right now it's all locked up and that's not what we want. I'm not even sure, and this is another topic all in of itself, but do we even want to have a mechanism where there's even any locking whatsoever, right? So a lot of people, when they think about staking their NFTs, it's always with some lock period. And I'm not sure that's something that we even want to incorporate. Maybe we want to have the ability to unstake anytime you want, where there's no lock. So we can talk about those facets, but that's probably enough topics for today. I'd like to maybe, close up and wrap up here. So Kaka or Ed, I don't know if you guys want to say any closing words and help me save the rest of my voice. I'd appreciate it. Yeah.
I'm gonna keep you safe for now. I think we're good to go. And once again, just to remind people, if some of them are going to listen this afterwards, post your question in general chat in Anna questions anywhere on the server. I don't really care, but as soon as we can, as long as we can gather the questions and answer to anything, because we want the community to be part of the decisions and part of everything as much as we can.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
That you have wrap up for now. Now, I have some questions, but not now. It's already been 1 hour here. I will post them on MAA, and we'll address them next week, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds good. We can chat about them throughout the week too, but certainly let's use this forum to, do some deep diving into it and have some more conversations. So, well, thank you guys. I appreciate you joining. Thanks for helping me out today with a little bit of a strained voice. I know I probably still talked a good bit, but it's in my nature. So I hope you guys are okay with that. Yeah, thanks a lot. And we'll see you next time on episode 4 of Loot Heroes Revival. See you guys.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.